This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy, and you probably are too. I'm Teegan, and I'm here today with Lindsay, and we wanted to take just a little bit of time to talk about some animated movie offerings that maybe are not of the Disney variety, whether they technically are maybe now owned by Disney or not, depending on how those rights go, and Disney has bought up a couple of places now.
Like, who even knows at this point?
I know, really. But all the movies we talk about, as of the time of its making and release, were not Disney at all. Their companies were not associated with Disney. It was completely separate. And some of them you may recognize, some of them you maybe not. Some of them you may have thought were Disney movies, but they are not. Or at least they were not when they were released. So we wanted to take some time to talk about that today. Just, sort of a little extra thing we can do while staying home. But before we get into all of that, we have Lindsay here with her Geek on Fleek.
Yes. So I actually have to credit Teegan on this one for Geek on Fleek because I was thinking about whatever we could possibly be talking about. And for the past couple of shows, we've been talking about things that specifically have to do with COVID-19, how geeks are dealing with it, how fun little extra things. I was thinking, okay, maybe we could do, how things have changed for you, what you plan to keep on doing when restrictions are lifted and stuff. But what's been really interesting has been the work from home phenomenon that has happened for 67% of the workforce of people who were going into work, sitting at a computer and doing cubicle work. Those 67% of those people are now working from home. And I work for a pretty large company. We had some outbreaks at other buildings, things that were going on, stuff that needed to happen. And so our facility was probably one of the last ones to really do the work from home program. But once we were able to do it, it's been such a cool opportunity for everyone to be able to be home with their kids, to still be efficient. And it's funny because working from home is different for different people. And, we've talked about introverts and extroverts on Geek on Fleek before. And I think it's interesting, too, with work from home. One of the articles I read actually talked about how the nerdy introverts are now going to shine because they are able to be more productive at home. And then those that are extroverted and kind of thrive on social interaction when they're at work, those people are going to really stand out as far as what they do at work and how successful they are working from home based on their personalities and their interactions. But it is actually projected that the amount of money people have spent, or people being companies have spent having to get their employees to be able to work from home, it offers an interesting dynamic because now there's tons of meetings that didn't necessarily need to happen in person that are now in Zoom meetings and Google Meetups and chat rooms like that, as well as, PowerPoints and slides that you could have just clicked through while your boss talked to you on the phone. Currently, my manager is doing this thing where we call in once a day or every other day and, make sure everybody knows what questions we've, updates, that kind of stuff. And we used to do a whole group meeting on Friday, and now it's this abbreviated, okay, any questions? Okay, any questions? Any updates? No? All right. We were getting all those emails anyway, so it's kind of cool to have this different dynamic in how self-sufficient people can actually be. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, I don't know, what people are saying is going to happen. I do think that they are actually saying at least each company has their own different ideas as to how many people are going to continue to work from home or are going to continue to be able to work remotely, at least part-time.
Yeah.
My staff especially, we are doing working from home every other week. So whatever work you do need to do in office, you kind of save it for the week you're in office. And you do what you can when you're not in office. Mm-hmm. But they are really predicting that most people are going to be able to do at least half of their work from home. And I think what's most interesting to me about that is the amount of money that was spent to be able to get people to be able to work from home now has to be like made up for in some way. So they're predicting these things you never even think of, like space rental, retail space rental is going to be different because people aren't going to need that much space to house their computer systems and their people to be able to sit. For a long time, you can hire more people to do more of the job, but where are you going to put them? That's a constant issue where I work, where they are always saying, oh yeah, we can hire more people, but we have no place to put them. So this kind of changes that a little bit. And so, like I record the podcast sometimes when I'm at work and I go into a hoteling space, which is a space that's like reserved for temporary workers or people who don't necessarily work for the company but work with the company and therefore would need like a computer space. So it's interesting to me. I never even knew what that space meant until I started looking into this work from home phenomenon that's going on. So anyway, I think it's interesting that we also like have this cool opportunity to spend time with our families too. One of the work from home stipulations used to be that you couldn't have your family at home. You couldn't have the kids running around or distractions happening. But now everyone's got that going on.
Yeah. So it's like, well, you just got to be an adult and deal with it.
Well, right. And I mean, it says a lot about how old your children are or how the dynamic is at home. Obviously, if you've got a very young child, they're going to want and need your attention all the time. But someone who has an older child doesn't necessarily need that kind of thing to happen. And yeah, so the best estimate that most of these companies say is like 30% of the workforce will still be working from home multiple days a week. They're actually predicting out to like 2021. So they're saying like this is a thing that, we have been working for such a long time towards. And now that so many companies have made this into a reality, it's just a very cool, different dynamic. And I guess I kind of wanted to just like be hopeful about it. I don't know. We've talked about being introverts and extroverts, and I wanted to mention, I am a self-proclaimed extrovert, but the working from home half of the time really helps. Although, 1 week I didn't stay home the whole time. I was only home a couple days. And another week I was home for 4 out of 5 days. I still was able to get what I needed to get done, which is pretty cool. But also there's a different thing that's going to happen too with this work from home thing where people are going to need to decide how productive they can be. Company managers are going to probably be checking productivity a little bit more as far as what you're able to do, your metrics, those kinds of things. And that can be kind of scary for some people, not realizing that you can be watched. Like, obviously you can be watched, especially working in a system that everything is monitored and changed. But geez, the other day I typed in a number on a new system that they're implementing, and I was instantaneously told, hey, don't do that. So I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I won't. Good to know.
And I find it so interesting that so many companies before were like, oh no, we have to have people here. We can't have people work from home. Oh no, that security concerns and all of that. Now all of a sudden, oh, well, looks like you figured it out then. That's good, right? And I can't help but feel that it might possibly have a positive impact on this toxic corporate culture that can happen where it's, it's basically high school all over again, as far as what people wear and how people act and everything. Because it's when you're home, it's you're not going to be wearing a pressed suit or anything,
Right.
And so I think that could be even a positive change if it keeps up. I think the really solid companies might look at this and realize that, hey, our workers can be just as productive at home. And, maybe we spend less money on our facilities. Maybe we spend less on like electricity and, this and this and that. And so, hey, it's actually cheaper. Who would have thought this? Oh, only everybody who was saying it before.
There's also like a couple other things that I haven't mentioned though too, like environmentally, as far as commuter travel and what we've been doing to our environment with the different ways that we travel. That's going to be something that can definitely be impacted by this, as well as like mental health. Imagine the possibility of that going either way, honestly, as far as mental health. Because if you are someone who needs social interaction, you're going to have to find it in other ways, even though currently social distancing and everything is a big thing. If that is lifted and you're able to interact with only the people you want to interact with, that could be a good thing, as well as, I guess it could be a bad thing if that kind of trade isn't made, I suppose.
Well, and I know some days, like, I would get to feeling like, I just, like, mentally I was not there. And, like, if faced with the possibility, of, hey, you can just sit here at home and do your work, I could have done that. But I ended up calling out because the prospect of doing work,
of going in,
going in, plus like getting ready, like getting dressed, looking presentable and interacting with people, that was just too much. Yeah. And so instead of getting that work done in a productive manner at home, that work did not get done. And so it's something to consider that sometimes, it's just a matter of, I don't have the spoons to do everything involved with going to work, but that doesn't always necessarily mean I can't work at all. Like,
exactly. No, I totally get it. Okay. So that is it for the week. I just wanted to kind of talk about something that might be hopeful for us. And now that I've talked a whole bunch, let's dive into animated movies that are not Disney movies.
Yes. Because, I think when people think of animated movies, of course Disney's going to be one of the ones that just pops up there because it's just, so ingrained with us. We've had Disney movies for decades now, and it's just, I think it's kind of natural to associate Disney with animated. But Disney's not the only studio out there making animated movies, and even some of the, I think, like, classic animated movies actually aren't Disney at all, but I think not everybody, like, it doesn't always click, Right.
What's interesting for me about this topic specifically is that I am the kind of person who, in the past at least, has always compared whatever movie was out there to the most recent Disney movie. And for a little while there was a Disney thing between like Pixar and Disney that was happening where a movie would come out and then the other guys would come out with a similar movie, like Bug's Life and Ants. Yeah. And to this day, I know that I've seen Pug's Life, and I'm pretty sure I've seen Ants, but the animation was so different that I don't really remember what my opinion was on it. But there's other ones that do that too, and it's just very interesting to me to make those comparisons uneducatedly. You know what I mean? Like, just to have always known that there was this other, there was an un-Disney.
Yeah, kind of like a movement to kind of recognize, like, hey, Disney's not the be-all, end-all of this, animated films. Like, there are tons and tons of movies out here that aren't Disney at all, but, like, you probably watched growing up and you loved, even if you didn't make that connection that, oh, this isn't Disney. Yeah.
Okay, so this is going to be like a rapid-fire, how many movies can we talk about at once? What's the first one?
First one, I mean... the biggest one I think that I had growing up that was probably one of my favorites was Anastasia. And that was released with Fox, which since Disney bought Fox, I'm unclear if that means that they now own Anastasia now. I don't know how those rights go. But,
right, me either.
But, I mean, obviously, at the time it was made and released, it was not affiliated with Disney in any way. But like a lot of the animation, like the singing, like it was very Disney-esque. Like if you weren't told like that it wasn't a Disney movie, you would have just assumed, oh, that seems like a Disney movie. You know?
Yeah. Well, and it did have a very Disney-esque feel to it. It had a super scary villain. It had music, the same kind of plot line where you're brought into what you know the conflict is and you know what needs to happen. There's a goal, a twist where you're pretty sure this is the climax and how are they going to get out of this, and you're always fooled about whether or not this is going to be a happy ending or not, and then you get to the happy ending and there's got to be something that's not quite so happy, and then they go off happily on the boat.
So like it has kind of all of those Disney iconographs in there, especially with the villain song, which honestly is like my favorite villain song of all time. Like if we're talking only Disney, I would have to go with Scar's Be Prepared, but if we're including everything, it 100% goes to Rasputin's In the Dark of the Night, because that is just absolutely fantastic. Oh,
and I almost forgot the comic humor of the Bat guy.
Yes, Bartok. He is one of the best parts of the movie.
Oh, he's such a good little bad sidekick. Oh, love it.
He's kind of like Iago from Aladdin.
Yes, like the comic relief. Like you hate him, but you love him because he's working with Rasputin, but you're not sure you're not okay with it.
But he's just so cute and adorable. It's like, aw.
He is, and he's got the fun little accent and everything. Oh, and so, like, the voice actors for Anastasia, too, were so interesting because you've got Kelsey Grammer and what's his name? And then I think Meg Ryan.
A whole bunch of, like, really, like, 90s.
Yeah,
like essential 90s names. Yeah.
The people you would have expected to be doing voiceovers in a Disney movie, but we're doing Anastasia instead. Yeah. It was pretty cool. I was pretty thrilled by that. And I do have to agree. I honestly think maybe Aurelia covered her eyes when we watched Anastasia because it was pretty scary. I think In the Dark of the Night is, especially when his head comes off and it's bouncing around.
Oh, yeah.
I probably had nightmares in the 90s from that for sure.
Yeah, there was...
And I mean, I'm a little older than you, so...
Yeah, just a little.
Okay, anything else to say about Anastasia?
I think that's about all I got to say. It was...
Can we also mention, like, the loosely based history in that?
Yeah, because
there was so much cool Russian history stuff in there.
Yeah, like that. I mean, obviously, they took a lot of liberties with it, but it was cool to like see like all kinds of like peoples and places referenced in that.
Right.
In
the
movie.
Romanov family and the they at least tried to be sensitive about the history and architecture and I don't know, like coolness of the Romanov Empire stuff.
Yeah.
So although I at the time didn't really understand how much liberties were being taken, it was still very cool to me, and it always has been really cool to me when history is when some work of fiction is loosely based in history.
Oh yeah. I think it's, just really cool and a really kind of neat way to introduce at least like the loose events so that, you can go back later and like kind of like research it and
right. And then you go on Wikipedia and you find out what that actually was and what actually did happen.
And then you dig deeper and deeper, and it's, at least I do that. I don't know if anybody else does that, but I do.
Who was Rasputin? Was he really alive? Was he really dead? Like, what really happened?
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Probably FernGully, I guess we could go with next.
FernGully. See, I love this. These are both movies that I could probably play a part in by how well I know them. FernGully. Robin Williams did the voice of...
So fantastically.
Yes. What was that? Another bat. Hold on a minute.
What is it with
going on here?
Yeah, what is it with animated films and talking bats?
Humorous sidekick bats. Interesting. And then I'm sure that there were other famous names and famous voices, but that's the main one.
Yeah,
Oh,
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry.
Yeah, was the villain because, of course, Tim Curry's the villain.
Of course. Well, and that was his heyday.
Yeah.
I don't know how he managed to get so much done in that period of time.
I know, right? It's like, did he
for all the
sleep
movies
at all?
that he was in? Right? Well, and then I don't know if you've seen the memes and stuff that say, like, you can learn a lot about a person as to what Tim Curry movie they know Tim Curry from. And you're like, well, okay, hold the phone. I know
because there's
him
a
from
lot.
this entire list of 10 movies from my childhood. Hold on.
Oh, and Cheech Marin was in there, too.
Oh, geez. Who did he... who did he play?
He was Stump.
Oh, one of the fairies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so we just talked about how, like, insidiously bad Rasputin was and how cool he was as, like, a scary dude. Hexus was pretty awesomely scary as well.
I know, and, like, in such different ways, because Rasputin was, for most of the movie, kind of, like, removed. Like, he kind of influenced, you know, different things, but Hexus was just, like, it seemed like he was almost always present in some way. Like, he wasn't just directing things, like, he was there, and, like, he was just so... He was so hard to kill or destroy because, like, you know, any little bit of him that was left, he could just come back from that.
Right.
You know,
and I
kind
think
of like a Terminator or something.
Yeah, that aspect of not being able to get rid of him, by him being in, like, the thoughts and minds of the humans and directing their goals, and then also, just, like, watching him come out of the dead roots of the trees was so, like, oh, no. We're never going to get rid of him. I don't know. I think what I loved about FernGully the most was, like, the emergence of this female strong character that wasn't, I don't know, she wasn't like a princess so much as, you know, trying to learn from her grandmother how to do this thing she wasn't really even sure she was supposed to be able to do. And in the end, you've got this different accomplishment, for lack of a better way to say it. Like, I loved FernGully. I couldn't tell you exactly why I loved it. I almost feel like there should be some kind of formula in there. You know, there's still the plot line that had every interesting thing, and I almost feel like, geez, Teegan, you're the writer. Come on. Something about how a animated movie, in order to be good, needs to have a direct plan.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's true for a lot of media, like a movie, where, you know, you're not going, where it's not like a TV series where you can just continue the story. You have to have... you know, a direct plan that you're going to go in and follow, and you have to really kind of boil down what is important to the story, what do I need to tell, and go from there. Because anything extraneous you can always just prune off. But you want a strong core story there that you can tell. And I mean, this was also, like, made and released during, like, the heyday of the 90s, like, environmental protesting, and, you know, just a lot of, what is the word I'm trying to say? Like, awareness, I guess.
Yes, environmental awareness.
Yes, and so, like, you know, along with, it seems to go hand in hand with, like, you know, like the TV shows like Captain Planet and, you know, all of the different special episodes on the sitcoms that they were doing. I remember one of them, I can't remember what show it was, but they were doing this thing on acid rain, and how, you know, this one girl used rainwater to, like, you know, do something with her hair, but, like, the bowl that she collected it in combined with the stuff she had in her hair turned her hair green. Do you remember that?
Goodness.
Do you remember that?
I think so. Yeah. It almost sounds like a Bill Nye episode, honestly.
But it was like a sitcom type of show. So
sure.
Maybe one of our listeners remembers what I'm talking about, because it was a long time ago, and it was a very, very brief, like, thing that
right,
I saw.
like a little moment in the show, sure.
Yeah, so like I have so many like brief memories like that where I just remember like a few little tidbits and like nothing
right, like a
else.
tidbit of something that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I think is really interesting though too is I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something about how many times have you and I discussed something about a plot line where loose ends were not tied up, or the plot was missed, or you felt like when they were doing the story they got to a certain point and then they sort of like gave up or they cop out.
Oh yeah. Only all the time.
Only all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just really cool to like know that these standards came from our animated 90s movies. Like, okay. Our childhoods ruined us, I swear. That's what happened.
Yes.
They set a certain standard, to say the least. Okay, what else?
I don't know if you remember this, but this is another one of my favorites. Ones that I watched. It's The Last Unicorn.
I don't remember that one unless it had another name.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But it had Christopher Lee as the villain, and Mia Farrow was the young unicorn, and she was like the last one of her kind. And she like turned like into a human, and she enlisted a sorcerer to like help her and defeat the villain and save the unicorns and everything like that. Like, it's been so long since I've even had a chance to watch it, so I don't, like, remember everything about it. But I remember just being so taken in by the animation and, the illustrations and everything in the movie. It's just, there's just beautiful delicateness to it, which, I mean, obviously is very appropriate, but it really plays into the plot itself. Like, it's like they use the animation to, just enhance the story.
Right. I honestly didn't see that one, I don't think. There was a movie that I feel like might have been dubbed, but maybe it wasn't. It was called Unico, UNICO, Unico. And my best friend had it on VHS, and it was ridiculous. And I think the first couple times I tried to watch it with her, I fell asleep. I am a movie narcoleptic. So I am pretty sure it was what we would watch at the end of, at the end of the night, 2 a.m. You're giggly and laughing hysterically for no good reason, because you're just exhausted. And I would try and watch it with her. And when I finally did get around to watching it, the ideas were so trippy, and the bad guy was so ominously strange. He was like a big ball-shaped guy. I can tell you his name was Lord Kuruku, and he was very, very scary. But because of his face, maybe, and his plans to turn all the children into something, and Unico had to stop them, and there was some puppets and some really cool stuff. Like, I can't even remember so much the plot as how affected I was by it. Because you get to a certain point in a story like that, and you're just enchanted by how they make these cardboard people stack up, and the concept of that happening, and what that would mean if Lord Kuruku was able to win, and all of that. Like, it's just a major amount of craziness, for lack of a better way to put it. I mean, it was just nuts. But I don't remember. I know it was called Unico, but I don't remember if it's dubbed or not. And I feel like we're going to have to do another episode just like this one, where we talk about animated on Disney movies that are from Japan or dubbed. I mean, we could have an entire series on that, which is what we keep doing. We keep coming up with ideas mid-show.
I know, right?
And, we can't negate or not talk about those DreamWorks movies and stuff that we briefly spoke about for a second. I can't think of any that really shaped my childhood or were really like an animated binge-worthy type thing, but maybe our listeners can, ask us to talk about something, I can do some research and watch a DreamWorks movie or two.
Well, I know, and like a lot of the movies I watched, if they weren't Disney, a lot of them were Don Bluth movies. Don Bluth had a huge influence, like back in the 80s and 90s, with as far as like animated movies go, with like stuff like All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Oh yes!
And,
oh my goodness!
The Secret of Nim, A Troll in Central Park, American Tail. I think Rockadoodle was one of his movies too.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, like
yeah,
it was like, if it wasn't a Disney movie, it was usually a Don Bluth movie.
Yeah. Oh my goodness! All Dogs Go to Heaven. That was an amazing movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember liking All Dogs Go to Heaven 2 so much because it, you know, just didn't feel the same when certain people at the end, or characters at the end of the movie don't come back.
Yeah.
Or the way that they're brought back in the second one. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I like things to be done and final.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Also, maybe not. I'm not sure.
And I loved An American Tail. I actually liked the sequel, 5-0 Goes West, better than the original. Because I like the whole Western...
I remember 5-0 Goes West better than anything else, I think.
So yeah, I liked the whole like Western aesthetic of the second movie better than the first one.
Sure. And I don't remember Rockadoodle.
Yeah, they kind of took a lot of liberties with like the whole Chanticleer thing, but I mean, like it was like a really cool and fun movie. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and are we really not going to talk about The Land Before Time?
Oh my goodness. Weren't we all just obsessed with, well, I didn't like Littlefoot very much. Even, there were some second movies and third movies, and I don't know how many Land Before Time movies there were, but I loved Ducky, and I hated Sarah, and that movie was so great.
I loved Ducky and Petrie. Those were some of my favorites. I remember, like, after watching the movie, like, I would sit down and have dinner, and I would eat the broccoli kind of like a dinosaur because I would pretend it was a tree. And that's where my whole, like, kind of association came with that.
Well, and even, like, wanting to find leaves that were shaped like stars and stuff. I mean, there was so much about that movie that I wanted to be able to relate to and feel at the same time, too. The, like, imminent danger of knowing you were moving across the continent because of something you couldn't see but knew was coming. It was very... It's even like the villain in that one isn't who you expected it to be either.
Yeah, the whole, thing about Don Bluth movies is, it does seem almost very Disney-esque, but it still does its own thing in its own way,
Right. Yeah, there's a completely different story being told. And the animation being the way it was and the stories being the way they were when Disney was pumping out princess movies is a very cool contrast.
I feel like Disney movies were a lot more like formulaic and like sticking to classic tropes, and then movies like, Don Bluth movies were a lot more willing to take risks and do things a little bit differently.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, what about Gaming Corner this week?
All right, Gaming Corner. So, as gamers, I think we all have our own little rules when it comes to playing games. Like, some gamers like to put games on, like, the hardest difficulty, like Nightmare or, just, survival or whatever, difficulty that is. And just pound it out until you can finally get to the end, and... I don't enjoy games like that. If other gamers like that, more power to them, good on you. I do not enjoy games like that. But even though I usually play on easy difficulties, I still kind of have certain rules about playing games. For instance, earlier, not this week, but a couple of weeks ago, I finally was able to go through and beat the Archdemon in Dragon Age Origins, which finally brought that whole main plot line to a close, and I therefore felt it necessary that now I can go play Awakening. Awakening was the DLC that was released after Origins came out, and it essentially covers some time of what happens after the main events of Origins, and you can, if your warden didn't die at the end of Origins, you can load your warden into Awakening. And I mean, you can start Awakening with a completely new warden if you want. You can just play it through. You don't even have to play Origins. But my whole thing was, I want to play it with my warden, and I want to finish out my world state with my warden and have everything, there when I play Awakening. And so that was just kind of like a little rule that I made for myself, was you can't touch Awakening until you finish Origins. So now I'm playing through Awakening and enjoying it so much, after all this time of denying myself the pleasure of meeting Anders and Nathaniel and Justice and all the characters there. And Sigrun is so just adorable. I love her so much. Why did I not recruit her sooner? Anyway, so I've noticed that even more easygoing gamers like myself sometimes self-impose rules. If we enjoy playing that way, then, that's that. We paid our money for our game. I think we have the right to play it the way that we want to play it. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's really harmful when other gamers want to try and come in and impose their rules on other people, So just because y'all, other people like to play on hardcore, that doesn't mean everybody wants to play on hardcore. Not all of us enjoy Nightmare. Same thing as, some people might want to go and play Awakening before they finish Origins. And that's fine too. It's all about, trying not to, I think, I just wanted to quickly address that toxic fandom part of, it comes up in, I think, a lot of gaming fandoms where, we kind of have our own ways we like to game, and other people like to try to impose that on other people, and it gets toxic because, not everybody enjoys playing games the same way. Not everybody enjoys doing the same things as we do them. Some people really like making an evil main character where you go through and you make all the quote unquote bad choices, sometimes just to experiment and see what happens. But, people like me, I don't like to do that because that means I have to be mean to people, and I don't like to be mean even to lines of code in a game.
Well, it's funny because these are sort of just related, but in a different way. Off-topic type things, but my daughter, she recently started playing Minecraft, and she's kind of exclusively playing in creative mode, where you are creating things as opposed to survival mode. And I didn't understand why you would just be in creative mode, but she's clearly in a creation kind of mood lately because she's been doing The Sims as well. But there's still something for her to be enjoying that isn't, looking at the screen of her phone or playing TikTok or being socially immersed in nonsense on social media. So I had to sort of take a step back and say, okay, this is clearly what she's interested in doing. This is something that she's enjoying. And, yesterday when she showed me the entire farmland house thing she had built, I was like, okay.
So it tickles that creative part of the brain, and sometimes that's just what you want and what you need, Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too, I could never play any of these games on nightmare mode or whatever. But you really hit on a good point there. If I spend my money for the game, I should be able to play it however I want.
Exactly.
But also, I can super appreciate the playability of a game that you can bring in a character that has learned or that you have learned in a past game, or being able to start over as well. Those are both really cool options to have.
Yeah, so it doesn't force the gamer to choose now I have to slog through this whole game in order to get to this particular point. No, if partway through the game you're like, you know what, I'd like to check this out just to see what it is. You can do that,
Right. But I was thinking about how, I've played Star Wars Life before, and at some point in the game you decide whether or not you want to be a Jedi or a Sith, and I was always trying to do the Sith end just to see if I could if I could actually finish the game before some of my friends did. Or, the same thing with life is when you go to college versus not going to college.
Yeah, just to see how different it could be.
Exactly, just to see how different it can be. And it's kind of the same concept when you think about it as to whether or not I want to make all the bad choices, like all the cis choices, or if I want to go to college and, be back so much money, but maybe it'll be more fun. Maybe I'll have more money than my friends. Who knows? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that was just my little gaming corner, not rant exactly, but just kind of thoughts. Like,
awesome.
We gamers, we spend our own money on our own games, and even if we play the same games, we probably enjoy them for different reasons. So just because, you might enjoy a game one way doesn't mean somebody else might not enjoy the same game another way. So it's all about, let everybody play the way they want to play it.
Yes. All right. Well, I think that's it for this episode.
Alrighty.
Yeah. We would love to hear from you as to what you'd like to hear us talk about. We are on social media in all kinds of different places. I mean, Teegan is able to list them better than me.
Yep, we have our Facebook page, which is under Beauties and Headcanons by Public House Media, and then our both our Twitter and our Instagram is just beauties_canon, and then our Tumblr is just Beauties and Headcanons.
Yes, and with that, please send us a message. We would love to hear from you. And I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Teegan, and thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headcanons.